Hi dear students and subscribers, after a long gap I am going to deliver the lecture on pumping of sewage, and which is very essential for wastewater engineering or wastewater management also. So I am once again requesting you to subscribe my channel, and it is very useful for various types of competitive type of examinations in civil engineering, as well as useful for diploma and degree level students. So let us start the lecture. First of all, what is the pumping of sewage? The pumping of sewage is nothing but the lifting of sewage at required elevation. In general, sewerage system at some places, the sewage cannot flow under the gravitational force only, and it requires its lifting. So this lifting is nothing but the pumping. Under following circumstances, it becomes necessary to pump the sewage. What are these circumstances? First of all, in some portion of city, there is a low-lying area and the sewage cannot be flow under the gravity into mains and sub-mains. In such a situation, we have to use the pumping to pump the sewage from lower part to upper part. When the basement are provided in the building, the sewage is pumped into the sewer line. So whenever there is a basement, we need the pumping of sewage. If ridge intervenes, you know the ridge in surveying. If ridge intervenes, sometimes it is economical to pump the sewage instead of providing a tunnel. That is also important. And when land is flat and it cannot be possible to get the self-cleansing velocity to the sewage, in circumstances we have to provide the sewage pumping, and then sewage is allowed to flow under the gravity when self-cleaning velocity is maintained. And at the treatment plants, it is required to raise the sewage for the treatment. In such a situation, pumping is required. Then we are going to discuss the sewage pumping is not simple as that of pumping of water. Why? You know that sewage has foul characteristics. Sewage contains suspended and floating matter which clog the pumps. Sewage contains the organic and inorganic impurities or waste, and which cause the corrosion and erosion. Sewage contains the diseases producing bacteria, and it causes the health hazards. The rate of sewage flow is continuously varying, and the pumping rate is to be adjusted accordingly. So the rate of flowing of sewage is varying. That is very important. Large size sump well cannot be constructed, otherwise the organic matter present in the sewage will settle at the bottom and will putrefy and produce the foul smell as well as choking of the sump well. To avoid such a choking due to organic and inorganic and various types of the suspended and floating impurities, the sewage pumping is not as simple as that of pumping of water. One must know all these reasons. Then we are going to discuss the capacity of pump. That is also important. How sewage plant or sewage flow are designed for the period of 15 years. Such a type of questions are asked in the objective type of examination, and the care should be taken for that, considering the future expansion. That is also important. So one must know that whenever you are going to decide the capacity of pumping station, we should go for the design period of 15 years. Such a provision of, we have to provide the additional space for that future expansion also, for replacing the smaller pumping units by the larger pumping units. And one must consider the size of dry well and wet well, that we are going to discuss in the latter part. Then we are going to discuss the types of pumping station. Types of pumping stations are three types. First is the circular with the central dry and peripheral wet well. But what is the dry well? Dry well is used for installation of pumpings or installation of pumps. Dry wells or installation of pumps. And wet wells are used for receiving the incoming sewage and storm water. One must know that the use of dry well and use of wet well. Such a types of questions are asked in the objective type of competitive type of examinations. Then first type is circular with central dry well, means centrally the pumping unit is provided, and peripheral wet well means for peripheral the sewage is pumped. Then rectangular with dry and wet well adjacent to each other, means the size is rectangular and two adjacent wells, one is the dry and another is the wet well. And third one, which is popular, circular with dividing wall to separate the dry well and wet well. This is a circular, and dry well is different, wet well is different. Then rectangular well, why it cannot be used? Because it required the more space and the walls to withstand the pressure of lateral soil as well as subsoil as well as sewage. Therefore, it is not recommended for the large sizes. They are only provided where there is availability of space. Then we are going to discuss the location of pumping station. It is very important part. First of all, topography. The topographical condition of the city should be thoroughly studied to locate the best site of pumping station. Second, if the quantity of sewage is very large, the site should be near to the point of disposal or at such a place where during emergencies the sewage can be directly disposed of. So in case of emergencies, we have to dispose of the sewage directly into the river or the disposing points. The site should be such that during flood it should not be flooded. This is also important. Then provision should be made to pump the sewage which will be received during the worst condition of rain or flooding. A grit chamber must be provided before the pump. Why? To remove the grit, sand and gravel etc. so that they may not cause the damage to the pumping machinery. In the sewer line, gate walls should be provided. Why gate walls in the sewer line should be provided? For closing the sections during repairs. That is very important. Gate wall is provided to closing the section of sewer line during the repairs. That is also important. Then we are going to discuss the requirement of the sewage pumps. The following are the requirements of the sewage pump. First requirement, we have to pump the sewage at required elevation. Then required quantity of sewage is to be pumped during the emergency period. It should be reliable. That sewage pump should be reliable. It should be cheap in initial cost and maintenance. That is also an important factor. It should not be corroded by the organic or inorganic waste of the sewage. It should not be damaged or worn out by the presence of sand, gravel, stone, etc. in the sewage. As the quantity of sewage is continuously varying, as discussed earlier, the pump must allow the fluctuation in it. So the pump can adjust the fluctuation in the quantity of sewage required to be pumped. It should not be clogged due to suspended and floating solids. There should not be a clogging. That is also very important factor. It should require the less space for installation, and it should not make more noise during working. So it should be comfortable. One must remember all these points to decide the type of sewage pump. Then power of pumping. I am not going to discuss this part in detail, but you should go through this presentation or the books. One must know that electrical motors, electric power is used nowadays. Second is the gasoline engines or gasoline power. This is very costly affair, and one must remember to use that gasoline engine. One must have sufficient availability of funds. Then steam engines. Steam engines are initially very costly, but these are most reliable. That is also important. And diesel engines. The initial cost of diesel engine is high. You must know that, and it is very difficult to start and their speed is slow. That is also important. So one must decide which type of power is used for the sewage pumping. It may be electric, it may be gasoline, it may be a steam, or it may be a diesel, but generally electric power is used. Then classification of pumps. We are going to discuss these pumps broadly in fluid mechanics or hydraulics. The sewage pumps can be classified as, you must know that centrifugal pump, and second is the reciprocating pump, and two another types are pneumatic ejectors and airlift pumps. These airlift pumps are popular nowadays. Centrifugal pump. You must know that there are the impellers or blades here in centrifugal pump, and outer casing is there. These two parts are very important, and sewage is drawn through the suction pipe into the pump. The sewage is drawn in this is the suction eye, and sewage is entered into this pump and rotate through the rotating vanes and goes out through the outlet pipe. These pumps are very simple in construction and working, and it can be installed in small pits and sumps also. Centrifugal pumps are not obstructed by the presence of sand, gravel and mud etc. in the sewage. That is very important, and these pumps are popular. The centrifugal pumps are again classified into three types. First is the axial flow types, and it is used for less heads or head less than 9 meter, and capacity is more than 2000 cubic meter per hour. In such a situation, axial flow pumps are used. Mixed flow pumps are used for the medium heights 8 to 15 meter and used for medium to large capacities. And radial flow, it is popular. Centrifugal pumps, why these are popular? Because they are used for any capacity and for any head. That is very important. You should go through this presentation because I have to deliver this presentation in minimum period, but for your study you must study all these points mentioned in the presentation. Then reciprocating pumps. These pumps are not suitable for sewage pumping. Why? Because solid and fibrous materials clog them even after passing the sewage through the screens. So clogging is the phenomenon occurred when reciprocating pumps are used for sewage pumpings. These are high in initial cost also, difficult to maintain also, have a low efficiency also, and causes high wear and tear to the walls. Therefore, it cannot be used for sewage pumping. So such a type of questions are asked in the examination. Then pneumatic ejectors. Centrifugal pump is suitable, as discussed earlier, for pumping the large quantity of sewage. This cannot be suitable for the small quantity of sewage because these pumps required in such a cases where we require the small quantity, very small size is required, which will often remain clogged. At such a places, pneumatic ejectors are most suitable. So one must consider that for the small quantities we require the pneumatic ejectors. The pneumatic ejectors can be provided under the following circumstances: when centrifugal pump may clog due to small quantity of sewage, when sewage from the low-lying area is to be lifted to the main sewer and the construction of pumping station is not economical. In such a cases, we can go for the pneumatic ejectors. And when the sewage is to be lifted from the deep tanks, and for lifting the sewage from the basement of large building up to street sewer, these pneumatic ejectors are used. Then airlift pump. These pumps are work on the compressed air and have no moving parts. That is very important. These pumps have no moving part, airlift pumps. Therefore are most suitable for sewage pumping. So such a type of small questions are asked in the objective type of examinations. These are simple in operation and give less trouble because they have no remote or submerged moving parts. It consists of vertical pipe known as a educator pipe placed inside the wet well. We already discussed what is the wet well. Wet well consisting of sewage. air inlet pipe is lowered into the educator pipe with the direction of the outlet upward as shown in the figure. One must study this figure, the compressed air which is compressed from here. This is the ground level, this is the wet well, and this is the educator pipe, or inside that there is a air inlet pipe. We can go for the well casing also, and this is the educator pipe as shown here. What is the principle of that air lift pump? The compressed air is released through the air diffuser connected at the lower end of inlet pipe in the educator pipe. This air is mixed with the sewage and form the bubble having low specific gravity than that of sewage. In the beginning, the level of the sewage inside and outside the educator pipe is the same, but when compressed air is passed, the density of the sewage inside the educator pipe is reduced, due to which the mixture of the sewage rises in the educator pipe. So we have to diffuse the air and we have to lift this sewage by using this compressed air principle. So one must know the working of air lift pump. Then lastly, we are going to discuss the safety measures. The following are the safety measures shall be taken at the sewage pumping stations. One must know that pumping station should not be provided with the ladders. Why? Because we are going to discuss in detail. Railing should be provided around all manholes and opening where cover may be left open during operations and other places having elevation differences. One must know that railing is very important. Second, staircases with landing should be provided in place of ladders. As far as possible, spiral staircase should be avoided, means winders to be avoided. The step of the staircase should be non-slippery type to prevent the slippage. Fire extinguishers, first aid boxes and other safety devices should be provided, and to minimize the possibility of cross connections, the pipes should be given different colors. That is very important. So, and this is, I think, enough for the diploma and degree level students regarding sewage pumping. Thanking you for listening my lecture very calmly, but this lecture is very useful for civil engineering students. So students, let us bye bye, and I am now going to continue the lectures continuously.